Holy hell, guys, so much has happened since we last spoke. The US and Iran agreed to a ceasefire, but then Israel broke it. But then they said that they were never part of it. Now the whole thing is on the verge of collapse. Bill Gates was summoned to testify in front of Congress for his dealings with Jeffrey Epstein. People, including Alex, are now claiming that the Artemis 2 mission around the moon was faked and filmed in front of a green screen. You'll never believe it, but the US and the Vatican are now beefing? Men from the United States are now automatically registered for conscription, and as promised, the winners of the PS5 Pro and 2 cloud hoodies will be announced at the end of the video. We're gonna be talking about all of that and so much more, so let's stop the yapping, get subscribing, and let's go to fucking Okay, it has been yet another insane 48-hour roller coaster of events. So the latest updates that we were able to cover in the last episode was, the threats that Trump was going to end an entire civilization. So we went to bed with little sleep that night. But then we wake up the next morning to news that the US did not bomb the hell out of Iran's bridges and power plants, but instead a ceasefire was agreed and the Strait of Hormuz was opening. I was thinking, what the hell? That is the kind of midweek news we needed. I mean, we were finally seeing some real peace materialize. And that is because just 2 hours before Trump's 8 p.m. deadline, Iran and the US agreed to a 2-week-long ceasefire. The US said, we're gonna stop all bombing on you guys, and then Iran said, we're gonna let your ships through. So it was a great deal. In fact, Trump said that they received a 10-point proposal from Iran that he believes is a workable basis on which to negotiate with a long-term problem solution close to resolution. Oh, and Pakistan, come on. Everyone in the chat, give them a round of applause because you guys genuinely played a major role as mediators in this ceasefire. In fact, as things kind of are, all parties were saying that they were taking the W for this. Iran declared it as a massive victory for themselves. The US said it was a great win for them. It was, in fact, a total and complete victory and a big day for world peace. Even oil decided to get involved and drop it like it's hot. It went under $100, so I don't know where I was going with that. So things were looking good. In fact, they even planned out the next steps, like delegations from both Iran and the US were to head to Pakistan for negotiations on Friday. In fact, they were even preparing for in-person talks, which included JD Vance. But, that only lasted a few hours because then something happened that screwed it all up. Israel carried out their largest coordinated strike on Lebanon since the war began. Yeah, they chose the very first day of the ceasefire to do that. And to be honest, we are unsure if the US had any prior knowledge that these attacks were going to be launched. And let me tell you, these strikes were intense. The IDF said that they targeted about 100 headquarters and military infrastructure in about 10 minutes. So 100 times in 10 minutes. And they said that they belonged to Hezbollah in towns and cities across the country. But these strikes also included very busy areas in the country's capital, Beirut. Because of that, and as you'll be able to see from the footage, Lebanon's health ministry says that at least 182 people were killed and more than 800 were wounded. In fact, some reports state that this was actually the heaviest amount of attacks on the capital, Beirut, ever from Israel. In fact, this is what the BBC is reporting. Emergency workers were searching damaged buildings for hours, finding amid the rubble glimpses of uninterrupted lives. Pictures of smiling families, pieces of clothes, school homework that was left unfinished. It was difficult to believe the scale of the destruction in an area so close to the center of the capital. Now, it's at this point where the chaos erupts around this ceasefire deal. Because Pakistan, remember, the mediators of this ceasefire, they initially said that Lebanon was included. Israel then came out, Benjamin Netanyahu, and he said, no, they were not. And I mean, even Reuters at the same time was reporting that Hezbollah, which are obviously the targets of Israel in Lebanon, they claimed that they stopped attacking Israeli targets early on Wednesday, suggesting that perhaps even Hezbollah thought they were part of this ceasefire. Iran themselves said that it did include Lebanon, and they called the Israeli attacks a, quote, grave violation. And at one point, there were even reports that the Strait of Hormuz was closed again. By the time you're watching this, I don't even know whether it's going to be open or closed. Seriously, it's changing that quick. Iran's deputy foreign minister said in a message to the United States, "You cannot ask for a ceasefire and then accept the terms and conditions, accept all the areas that a ceasefire is applied to, and name Lebanon, and then your ally just starts a massacre." So, ultimately, let me just boil down. Here's the situation that we're in. As of recording right now, there is this agreed upon ceasefire, but the specifics about who it involved, if it's violated, or even if it's begun, is unclear. It's also unclear if the US and Israel amongst themselves have agreed about this ceasefire, because it doesn't seem like they are on the same page in terms of their objectives. You know, for Israel to launch their biggest attack on Beirut in decades on the very same day that their allies negotiated a ceasefire sends a pretty strong message that they are not on the same page. However, there is still a glimmer of hope, because on the good news side of things, there are no reports of any drones or missile attacks overnight in the Gulf region, which is actually the first time we are hearing of this since the war began. And additionally, the talks between the US and Iran are scheduled to go ahead tomorrow, with JD Vance suspected to lead these negotiations. So yeah, that's the situation as of right now, but who knows? By the time this video goes live, everything could have changed. We could be back at full-scale war. That's how fast things are changing. But of course, I will keep you guys updated on the next installment on Saturday. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. Let me know your thoughts, but for now, moving on. Also, since we last spoke, we have finally got some news about that guy. What was his name again? Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah, we haven't heard about him in a minute, which is not good, because this subject, the Jeffrey Epstein subject, far from over. But it turns out yet another big name has been called up to testify in front of Congress. Bill Gates. Potentially the biggest name. So a hearing has been scheduled for June, where Gates will be asked various questions about his relationship with Mr. Epstein, you know, like what he knew, what he saw, similar to the Clintons earlier this year. But guess what? According to Bill Gates' spokesperson, he is, quote, looking forward to answering all the committee's questions to support their important work. And of course, this is being framed as, you know, they're going to grill him, they're going to ask all the questions. You know, he's had multiple dinners with Mr. Epstein. He's been in communication with him multiple times. Bill Gates allegedly contracting STDs from Russian girls. But ultimately, whether we will get a smoking gun or anything substantial is questionable. Because as we saw with Bill and Hillary Clinton, when they were grilled on their connection with Jeffrey Epstein, there was almost nothing. And there were pictures with freaking Clinton in a hot tub. So to expect that Bill Gates will just voluntarily give up some really incriminating information is unlikely. But at least it does show that the whole Epstein saga hasn't just been swept under the rug and we've forgotten about it. Because remember, there's only 2 people that have actually been put in jail, and one of them's dead, of the thousands of victims. So let's just keep speaking about it while there's, you know? Anyway, I'll keep you guys updated on the situation when it arrives. Moving on. Oh, next piece of news. You guys have to watch these clips because I have never seen someone like this before. So an IT company in America has come up with a very interesting technique to solve a very unique problem. Identifying North Koreans. Not a problem a lot of us have. You see, it turns out that a lot of US tech companies are receiving just floods of job applications from North Koreans posing as Americans, or I guess from other parts of the world, like I'm Japanese, I'm South Korean, and you know, they give them fake identities, they try and get the job. In fact, it's a pretty well-documented scheme at this point, used by the North Korean government to earn the foreign currency, which translates obviously very good for the regime, but also to steal data. But here's the thing, you know, these North Koreans that are applying for these jobs, they've been training, you sneaking in, you know, it's not easy to, you're North Korean, that's easy. No, it's not that easy, but there's one founder that seems to have come up with a pretty bulletproof solution. So Harrison Lego, a co-founder of a crypto company called Gatekeep, says that as a final screening method, he will ask a job applicant to say something negative about Kim Jong-un or North Korea. Because remember, Doing so it's a criminal offense there. And in a video that he posted, and which has now been making the rounds online, we see this play out in real time. So firstly, this interviewer is asking the candidate who claims to be Japanese to say
corn casserole
Kim Jong-un, but he just pretends to not understand, and then the call conveniently loses reception.
Yeah, one thing we always get candidates to do is, and this sounds really stupid, I'm sorry, but can you say like Kim Jong-un for me?
Sorry?
Can you? I know this sounds really stupid, but it's a good test because we get lots of imposter candidates. Can you just say like Kim Jong-un for me?
Then they get him back on the call and they ask him to call Kim Jong-un a fat, ugly pig.
You know Kim Jong-un, the leader of North Korea?
Yes, yeah, I know. I just heard about his social and yeah.
Yeah, can you say he's a fat, ugly pig for me?
What should I say?
Can you just say after me, Kim Jong-un is a fat, ugly pig? I just need that to, we get lots of imposter candidates, so. Taro, can you hear me? Damn, I think you're gone.
Oh man, how'd you even think about this? Moving on! Also, since we last spoke, it's April. And you know what that means? It's Conscription lottery in Thailand.
It's conscription, lottery time, spin the dial, let the numbers chime, grab your ticket.
This is something that I'm only finding out about in the Big 26, yet it's been going on for years.
Conscription, lottery time.
So every year at the start of April, Thai men aged 21 years old must partake in a lottery to determine whether they're going to be drafted for military service or spared. And instead of it just being mandatory for everyone, they have to come out and draw cards at random. Red means they're drafted, black means they're exempt. And this has basically just become like a TV show. You just turn up because the celebrations, or obviously the sadness, is pretty entertaining. Now, there are some exemptions to this. For example, if you choose to serve voluntarily before you're 21, your term will only be reduced to 6 months instead of 2 years. So, bit of a gamble. But also, monks and transgender individuals are exempt in many of these cases. Honestly, this conscription method is pretty wild, and I feel like it's a little bit more entertaining, living a little bit more on the edge. Every country should do this. Maybe the New Spaghetti Empire. We will do this.
It's conscription, lottery time.
Moving on. Also, since we last spoke, Alex is gonna love this next one. Of course, everyone has been speaking about the first time that humans have gone around the moon in 52 years. But along with that, there are the naysayers, the Alexes of the world that say, no, this was all fake. And here's some evidence to prove it. If you go on his channel, it's just flooded with the moon landing was fake videos. It's crazy over there. But many claims are coming out saying that all of the footage that we saw of Artemis 2 was filmed in a studio or a movie set. So, a lot like the theory that the moon landing was fake.
So explain to me. Here you go. The guy's getting off the rocket ship. Who the is filming him? Who's filming him?
A guy?
How'd the guy get up there if this is the first guy supposed to be on the moon? A different rocket ship?
I don't know.
So they sent the rocket ship up there. He got off and he's like, all right, come on up now. I'm ready to film. Are you
what if they're in the
serious?
same rocket ship?
He's supposed to be the first guy on the moon. The car. How the did the car fit in that rocket ship? Look. How did that car fit in the rocket ship? Yeah, watch. Let me show you. There it goes. Bye-bye. You know what? I'm going to stay behind. You guys go back to Earth. I'll die up here. And how the did he get the film back to Earth?
Which Alex believes, along with aliens. One of the biggest claims that have gone pretty viral is this video, which critics claim, so does Alex, is proof of the astronauts being filmed in front of a green screen. So if you zoom in to the shuttle's mascot, it does look a little bit weird. It's got this green smudge, which may or may not look a little bit strange, depending on who you ask. And then obviously the biggest one that people are pointing out is that there seems to be this random text on the mascot that obviously isn't meant to be there. Now everyone said this is proof. This was all a green screen. It was just a glitch. we saw you. But this text is now being explained by AFP fact-checked as a mistake from one of the news broadcasters who were trying to overlay some of the words, but there was a glitch. Now, I can already hear Alex saying, oh, convenient, huh? Convenient. Now, there's also these images that have been going pretty viral, but they are AI before anyone says anything. Alex, you probably think they're real, but they're not. And then, of course, there's the familiar comments about why aren't there any stars in the background? That's like the most fundamental debunked method, okay? So we're not going through all of the different ways that these can be debunked. Alex has spoken enough about this on his channel. Maybe you can, Alex.
Okay, I'll take the bait. You got me. Let's clear some things up. Number one, no, I've never said that I do or do not believe that we have landed on the moon. I have, however, said I can understand why people would believe that we haven't landed on the moon. And I've also said that I'd be willing to change my beliefs should enough evidence be shown to me to prove that we didn't, which is the fundamentals of science, by the way, to follow the evidence and not your personal bias, even if that evidence completely rewrites your foundational beliefs. And I take this approach with pretty much all things, and I use it as a sort of a stoic tool to prevent me from dying on a hill that may have been misrepresented, meaning that the only thing that I can conclusively really confirm are in my immediate physical reality, and the rest is just noise. However, unfortunately for me, our supreme leader understands my open-minded approach to fun subjects as a susceptibility to radicalized thinking, when in reality it's more of an enjoyment around exciting concepts and ideas, which is why you've probably heard and will continue to hear these character assassinations about me on this channel full of millions of viewers. But luckily for me, I edit the channel, so I can just cut in anytime I want and address things. Like shamelessly plugging my channel and trying to convince you guys to go subscribe there so you can hear me break down fun and creative ideas like the one that Dylan keeps baiting me on. So head on over to my channel if you want full in-depth breakdowns of these concepts and ideas. But for now, moving on.
But on a real one, if there ever is any serious evidence, that is substantiated that this whole thing was fake, I will present it to you guys impartially, unbiased, okay? You have my word. But for now, moving on. Right, also, we've got to talk about a pretty interesting policy change happening right now for young Americans, men specifically. So from the end of this year, December, eligible men will be automatically registered for the US military draft.
It's automatic enlistment time.
If a large-scale war ever does break out, I mean, larger than the one that we're currently in. Now, of course, at first glance, that does sound pretty concerning, because I think a lot of people like, damn, come on. But when you dig a little deeper, it's not as crazy as it seems, because you see, there's already a law for all men aged 18 to 25 to register themselves into this military draft pool. And that is called the Selective Service System. It was first introduced 100 years ago, all the way back in World War I. And what it is, it's essentially a giant database for the US government to have to see all the eligible men if they ever need to call a bunch of reservists up. And so the current system is that these guys are supposed to register themselves within 30 days of turning 18, but from December, this happens automatically. You don't have to worry about doing it. It just gets done on your behalf. According to the government, this is going to save money and make the process a whole lot faster and easier by shifting the responsibility from the individual to the system itself. Faster and easier. Is that a good thing? Of course, let me know what your guys' thoughts are on this, but for now, moving on. Also, since we last spoke, a very strange headline I did not expect to be talking about, but beef between the United States and the Vatican may or may not be happening right now. So yesterday we saw a very interesting article from the Free Press where they claimed that a very tense meeting between an official from the Pentagon and a representative of the Pope Leo, happened back in January. Now the Free Press claim, after speaking with unnamed Vatican sources and also US officials familiar with this matter, that this Pentagon official was confrontational in this meeting and not happy with some of Pope Leo's criticisms of the Trump administration. Now, apparently this meeting happened behind closed doors at the Pentagon, where this official allegedly lectured the Pope's representatives, saying that the US, quote, has the military power to do whatever it wants in the world. The Catholic Church had better take its side. The official was allegedly especially angry by how Pope Leo questioned the Dondro Doctrine, which is Trump's updated version of the Monroe Doctrine. And that's essentially a doctrine that essentially calls for the US to be the unchallenged controller of the Western Hemisphere, as well as other alleged remarks that he made against the Trump administration. And it's not just the Free Press. Other sources have also confirmed that this meeting did take place, including letters from Leo, which is a Substack that is very familiar with Vatican affairs. In fact, they even said that some Vatican officials are so alarmed by the Pentagon's tactics that they even scrapped plans for Pope Leo to visit the United States later this year. In fact, they said that they saw some of the Pentagon's remarks as a threat of force against them. Now, US officials, on the other hand, they are denying the accuracy of these reports. They claim that the Free Press's characterization of this meeting is highly exaggerated and distorted. They said that the meeting was respectful and a reasonable discussion. So now we're in this situation of who do you believe? But I do think it's a pretty grave sin for priests and Vatican officials to be lying. So make of that what you will, but for now, moving on. And then, lastly, today in history. Today, 84 years ago, was the day that Germany invaded both Norway and Denmark. Now, they did quickly capture multiple cities all the way from Oslo to Copenhagen. Now, Denmark, they surrendered almost immediately in just 6 hours. However, Norway, they did not. Ultimately, the fighting with Norway continued along their allied forces, but they were overrun, and it was eventually occupied. And also today, 65 years ago, NASA introduced America's first ever astronauts. They were named the Mercury 7, and they would go on to help the US send the first humans into space. And ultimately, and Alex would say allegedly, the first men on the moon. And then finally, the winners of the giveaway. This is so heavy and so valuable. I have to pick it up with so much force. Of course, all of these were randomly chosen. Winner of the PS5 Pro, Don the Peasant. Alex, blur out the actual name, but you can. Here's a screenshot of what he said. I love the email. Well done. Then the second winner of the Cloud Hoodie, which sold out in 8 minutes. So you literally cannot get these anywhere else apart from the giveaway right now. So well done. That is Ghoulmaster. And then the winner of the second Cloud Hoodie is Name there. We will be contacting all three of you. Well done, guys. I hope the Empire's people are very happy now that we've showered them with gifts. Thank you again to Proton for sponsoring this giveaway. Proton, beloved friends of the Empire, we thank you. But that is a wrap. Hope you guys are having a great week so far, and I will see you on Saturday. Woo!